My name is Ava, and I'm 32 years old. Last Thanksgiving, I thought I was spending dinner with a family that had loved and raised me for over 2 decades. The dining room was filled with the aroma of roasted turkey. Candles cast a warm glow on the table, and my stepfather, Marcus, was proudly carving the bird as usual. I'd brought my boyfriend, James, to meet everyone, feeling so grateful for the wonderful life I had built. But in one terrible moment, my mother uttered words that completely destroyed my sense of belonging in this family. Her cruel words brought me to my knees in front of everyone I held dear. Before I continue, please let me know where you're watching from and subscribe to my channel. You'll want to hear the rest of this story because what my mom said next changed everything forever. I never really knew my biological father. He left when I was 4, leaving behind only broken promises and unpaid bills. My memories of that time are fragmented. The sound of doors slamming, my mother crying, and the profound silence that followed his departure in our small apartment. But at age 6, everything changed. Marcus entered our lives like a kind, gentle giant with a warm laugh and compassionate eyes. From the very beginning, Marcus treated me like his own daughter. He never made me feel like damaged goods or a burden he had to take on. The first time we met at a community barbecue, he knelt down to my level and asked my favorite color. When I whispered purple, he smiled and said he hoped to meet someone who loved purple because it was a special color for special people. Marcus became my hero. He taught me to ride a bike, running alongside me until I was brave enough to pedal alone. When I fell, he gently cleaned and bandaged my scraped knee with a cartoon band-aid. He never missed a school play, even when I was just a tree with 2 lines in the 3rd grade production. He'd sit in the front row, recording on his old camera and cheering louder than any other parent. High school had its own challenges, but Marcus was always there. On my first day of 9th grade, when I was scared of the new school and making friends, he walked me to the entrance and gave me a small purple notebook. Inside he had written, "For my brilliant daughter, write down all your adventures." That notebook became my diary of teenage dreams and worries, and knowing Marcus believed in me gave me the courage to face anything. What made our relationship even more special was that Marcus treated me the same as Tyler, his biological son, who was 4 years older than me. Tyler was already 10 when Marcus married my mother, and I worried he might resent sharing his father. But Marcus ensured there was enough love for both of us. He created traditions that included all of us equally. Every summer we'd go camping in the mountains. Marcus would let Tyler and me take turns choosing the hiking trails, and he'd listen to our stories around the campfire with equal attention. He taught us both how to fish, though Tyler had more patience for it. Marcus would just laugh when my fishing line got tangled, gently untangling it while explaining that the best things in life require patience. Saturday mornings were sacred in our house. Marcus would wake up early to make his famous blueberry pancakes shaped like animals. Tyler and I would compete to see who could identify the shapes first. Marcus always declared it a tie so neither of us felt left out. Those pancakes tasted like pure love, and the kitchen would fill with our laughter as we debated whether the lumpy shape on our plates was a giraffe or a dinosaur. When I got interested in art in middle school, Marcus turned part of the garage into a small studio for me. He bought me an easel, paints, and canvases, even though money was sometimes tight. He would sit quietly while I painted, never giving unsolicited advice but always ready with encouragement. He proudly hung my artwork all over his office for visitors to see. Marcus was there for every milestone. When I got my driver's license, he took me out for a celebration dinner and gave me a car charm for my keychain. When I graduated as valedictorian, he cried during my speech and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. When I decided to study graphic design in college, he researched every program with me and helped me with financial aid applications. The years passed, and our bond only grew stronger. Marcus supported me through college heartbreaks, career uncertainties, and the normal struggles of growing up. When I landed my dream job at a prestigious design firm 3 years ago, he was the first person I called. His voice cracked with pride as he told me he always knew I would succeed. Now at 32, I had a successful career as a graphic designer, creating visual stories for clients. Marcus still asked to see my latest projects, studying them with the same attention he had given my childhood drawings. His pride in my accomplishments never wavered. This Thanksgiving felt especially meaningful because I was bringing James home to meet the family. We had been dating for 8 months, and I was falling in love with his kindness, humor, and how he listened to my stories. I was excited for him to meet Marcus. Knowing his approval meant everything to me. The family had grown. Tyler was now 28 and married to Sarah, a kind nurse. They had recently welcomed baby Emma, a beautiful little girl with Tyler's dark hair and Sarah's bright smile. Marcus was completely smitten with his first grandchild, and watching him hold her reminded me of how gentle he had always been with children. My mother, Patricia, was 55, still working as a school administrator. Our relationship had its ups and downs, but I attributed any tension to normal mother-daughter dynamics. She could be critical, but I thought she was just trying to help me improve. As we all gathered around the dining room table, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for this family that had made me who I was. The table was set with Patricia's best china, the turkey was golden brown, and Marcus was telling one of his classic dad jokes that made everyone groan and laugh. I squeezed James's hand under the table, feeling so blessed to share this moment with him. I had no idea this perfect dinner was about to become the worst night of my life. The dinner started beautifully, just as I had hoped. Marcus carved the turkey with his usual ceremony, joking about his world-famous carving skills, while Tyler good-naturedly rolled his eyes. Baby Emma was passed around, gurgling happily and charming everyone with her tiny grasping fingers. James fit in perfectly, asking thoughtful questions about everyone's lives. But as the evening went on, I started to feel uneasy. Patricia seemed a bit more distant than usual, her smile not quite reaching her eyes when she looked at me. At first I dismissed it, thinking she was just tired from hosting. Then came the subtle comments. When James complimented my promotion, Patricia made a pointed remark about how some people just get lucky. When I mentioned the apartment James and I were considering, she wondered aloud if I was moving too fast. They weren't direct attacks, but there was an edge to her voice. Marcus seemed to sense the tension too. I saw him giving Patricia questioning looks and trying to change the subject when her comments got too sharp, like when she criticized my purple dress for being too attention-seeking. Marcus quickly complimented me and shifted the topic to Tyler's promotion. The comments about family resemblance began during dessert. Sarah was holding Emma, and everyone was admiring how much she looked like a baby Tyler. Patricia went into detail about genetics, pointing out which features Emma inherited. She mentioned Tyler's nose being just like his father's and Emma's hands being shaped like her grandmother's. "It's amazing how these family traits get passed down through generations," Patricia said, her voice sounding almost academic. "You can always tell who belongs to which bloodline just by looking closely." Tyler shifted uncomfortably and avoided eye contact with me. Sarah tried to lighten the mood, but Patricia wasn't done. "Blood really does tell," she continued, her gaze settling on me for a moment too long. "There's something to be said for knowing where you come from, understanding your real heritage and place in the family tree." James squeezed my hand, sensing the strange tension. I tried to change the subject to Marcus's retirement plans, but Patricia kept steering the conversation back to bloodlines. The tension was building, and I felt more and more anxious. This wasn't the warm family dinner I had imagined. Something was wrong, and I had a terrible feeling I was at the center of Patricia's anger. Marcus was visibly frustrated, his jaw tightening with each pointed comment from his wife. I had rarely seen him so uncomfortable. Tyler and Sarah exchanged worried glances, and even baby Emma started to get fussy. I kept trying to rationalize Patricia's behavior, telling myself it was just family drama that would pass. Maybe she was stressed from hosting. I had learned over the years that sometimes it was better to ride out her moods than confront them. But deep down I knew this was different. Her comments were deliberate and calculated, designed to make me question my place at the table. James later told me he noticed it too. As we finished dessert, I desperately wanted the night to end on a positive note. I suggested we move to the living room, hoping a change of scenery would help, but Patricia wasn't finished. The storm that had been brewing all evening was about to break, and I was completely unprepared. The explosion happened so suddenly it caught everyone off guard. We had just moved to the living room. Marcus was in his armchair holding Emma, Tyler and Sarah were on the couch, and James and I were on the love seat. The conversation had turned to Marcus's plan to update his will. Patricia had been quiet, but I could see something brewing behind her eyes. When Marcus mentioned he wanted to make sure all his children were taken care of equally, Patricia's face changed completely. The polite mask she had been wearing slipped away. "All your children?" she asked sarcastically, her voice dripping with venom. "Let's be clear about what we're talking about, Marcus." The room fell silent except for Emma's soft babbling. Marcus looked confused. "Patricia, what are you talking about?" he asked gently. "I'm talking about the fact that you've been living in a fantasy for 20 years, she said, standing up and facing us all. "I'm tired of pretending. Tired of watching you throw money and attention at someone who isn't even your real family." My stomach dropped. I could feel James tense beside me, and Tyler's face went pale. Sarah instinctively pulled closer to Tyler, as if to protect herself and the baby. "Patricia, stop this right now," Marcus said firmly, his voice carrying a rare warning tone. But she was beyond reason. Years of hidden resentment poured out like poison. "No, Marcus. I won't stop. Someone needs to say what everyone in this room already knows." She looked directly at me, her eyes filled with a cruelty I had never seen before. "Ava has been manipulating this family for years, playing the sweet daughter role while taking advantage of your generous heart." "Mom, please don't do this," Tyler said, his voice shaking. "Don't do what, Tyler? Tell the truth." "Your father has given her everything. College tuition, cars, emotional support, unconditional love. And for what? So she could play dress-up as his daughter." I felt like I was watching this from outside my body, unable to process it. My hands trembled and I could barely breathe. James put his arm around me protectively, but I was too shocked to even lean into his comfort. Marcus stood up, carefully handing Emma to Sarah. His face showed a mixture of anger and hurt I had never seen before. "Patricia, I'm warning you. Stop this now or I will ask you to leave this room. Leave my own house for stating facts." Her voice became louder, more shrill. "She's not your daughter, Marcus. She never was and she never will be. She's just some other man's abandoned child you felt sorry for." The words hit me like physical blows. My legs gave out and I collapsed back onto the love seat, tears streaming down my face. The room was spinning and I couldn't catch my breath. "You're not his real child," Patricia continued, her voice now filled with 20 years of suppressed anger. "You never were and you never will be. And I'm sick of watching my husband waste his love and resources on someone who doesn't even share his blood." Emma started crying, sensing the tension. Sarah looked horrified, and Tyler had his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Marcus's face went from white to red with fury. I had never seen him so angry. "How dare you," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "How dare you speak to my daughter that way in front of my family? Your daughter?" Patricia laughed bitterly. "She's not your daughter, Marcus. Is the child of some deadbeat who couldn't be bothered to stick around. And you've been so blinded by your savior complex that you can't see how she's manipulated every situation to get your attention and money." The cruelty of her words was beyond anything I could have imagined. She went on to detail moments where she felt I had manipulated Marcus's affection. In her twisted narrative, every genuine moment of love between us became a sign of my calculated manipulation. She accused me of playing on my abandonment issues to get Marcus to feel sorry for me and claimed I deliberately chose interests that would appeal to him. According to her poisonous version of events, every hug, proud moment, and loving gesture was part of my elaborate scheme to secure my place in the family and access to Marcus's money. The worst part was watching Marcus's face as she spoke. I could see the pain in his eyes, not because he believed her, but because he was realizing the deep resentment his wife had been harboring for decades. This wasn't just a moment of anger. This was years of jealousy and bitterness finally exploding. James was trying to comfort me, whispering that Patricia was wrong and unreasonable. But her words had cut so deep that I couldn't process his kindness. Every memory I cherished was being twisted into something ugly and false. I felt my entire identity crumbling. If Marcus wasn't really my father in his heart, if all those years of love had been pity or obligation, then who was I? What was my place in this world? Through my tears, I heard Marcus trying to defend our relationship. His voice breaking as he told Patricia that love wasn't about blood and that I was his daughter in every way that mattered. But the damage was done. Patricia's words echoed in my head, drowning out everything else. I knew I had to get out of that room before I fell apart completely. With James's help, I stood on shaking legs and grabbed my purse and jacket. I couldn't look at anyone. I couldn't bear to see pity or discomfort in their eyes. As we headed for the door, I heard Marcus calling my name. His voice desperate and full of love, but I couldn't turn around. I couldn't face him when I felt so broken and unsure of everything I had believed about our relationship. The last things I heard before the door closed behind us were Emma crying and Patricia's voice, still defending her actions, still insisting she had only told the truth. The drive home was silent. James kept glancing over at me with worried eyes, but I couldn't speak. I felt like I was underwater, everything muffled and distant. My hands were still shaking and I couldn't stop the tears. Every few minutes, a sob would escape. James helped me into our apartment, his arms steady around my waist because I was still unsteady on my feet. He guided me to the couch and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, then sat beside me without saying anything. He seemed to understand that words couldn't fix what had happened and that I needed time to process the devastation. When I finally spoke, my voice was a broken whisper. What if she's right? I asked, not looking at him. What if I really have been manipulating him all these years without even realizing it? Ava, that's not true and you know it, James said gently. I've watched you with Marcus. What you have is real love, a genuine family connection. Your mother was being cruel and jealous. But her words had planted seeds of doubt that were growing rapidly. I started replaying every memory, searching for evidence of manipulation. Had I really chosen art because I loved it, or because I saw how much Marcus enjoyed encouraging my creativity? When I called him after college breakups, was I truly seeking comfort, or was I unconsciously playing on his protective instincts? The questions tormented me through a sleepless night. James stayed with me, bringing me tea and tissues and holding me when the crying was intense. But even his steady presence couldn't quiet the voices in my head telling me that maybe Patricia was right. Marcus called my phone at least 10 times that night, but I couldn't answer. I wasn't ready to hear his voice, wasn't prepared for what he might say. What if Patricia's words had made him question our relationship too? What if he was calling to gently tell me that Patricia had a point about blood family being different? The next few days were a blur of emotional numbness punctuated by intense pain. I called in sick to work, unable to focus on design projects when my entire sense of self was in question. James had to leave for a business trip, but he arranged for his sister to check on me, worried about leaving me alone. I spent hours looking through old photo albums, studying Marcus's face in pictures with me versus with Tyler. Was his smile different? Did his eyes show less genuine affection? I analyzed every birthday card he had given me, every note he had left in my lunchbox, searching for signs of obligation instead of love. The worst part was how Patricia's words had poisoned even my most cherished memories. The purple notebook. Was that really because he believed in me, or because he felt sorry for the abandoned child who needed extra encouragement? The garage studio. Was that genuine support, or was he trying to keep me busy and out of the way? By the 4th day, I had barely eaten. James's sister brought me soup, but I couldn't engage in conversation. I felt like I was mourning the death of my identity, grieving for a relationship that might have never been real. That's when the anger finally started to surface. I was sitting on my bathroom floor after another crying session, catching sight of myself in the mirror. My eyes were swollen and red. My face was pale and drawn. I looked like a ghost. Suddenly, I felt a flash of fury at what I had become in just a few days. Patricia had done this to me. She had taken a beautiful family dinner and turned it into a weapon to destroy my sense of belonging and self-worth. She had waited 20 years to deliver this blow, choosing the most public and humiliating moment possible to tear me down in front of everyone I loved. But more than that, I realized she had been chipping away at my confidence for years with her subtle comments. The passive-aggressive remarks about my career and relationships had all been building to this moment. As the anger grew, it began to burn away some of the self-doubt she had planted. I started thinking about Marcus more clearly, remembering not just the moments of support but the consistency of his character over 2 decades. Marcus wasn't someone who could fake emotions for years. His love had always been authentic and unwavering. I also thought about Tyler and how horrified he had looked during Patricia's attack. He hadn't defended her words. He had looked ashamed, like he was witnessing something terrible he wished he could stop. James called me that evening, and for the first time I was able to have a real conversation. "I've been thinking," I told him, my voice stronger. "Patricia doesn't get to define my relationships or my worth. She doesn't get to take 20 years of genuine love and twist it into something ugly." "I'm so proud of you for saying that," James said, relief in his voice. "You've been part of that family longer than Patricia has been married to Marcus. Your relationship with him is real, Ava. Anyone who has eyes can see that." That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Patricia's cruelty destroy what Marcus and I had built. I wasn't going to hide in shame or let her words poison my memories. Instead, I was going to fight back with strength and dignity. It was time to take control of my own narrative and show Patricia that her attempt to break me had failed completely. Over the next week, I began researching Patricia's behavior to understand where her cruelty came from. I wasn't looking to excuse her, but to understand the psychology behind it so I could respond effectively. I remembered past conversations where Patricia had revealed her own insecurities. She had mentioned feeling overlooked as a middle child and talked about her fear of abandonment from her own father. Years ago, she confided that she sometimes felt like Marcus loved being a father more than a husband. At the time, I thought she was just feeling neglected. Now, I realized her resentment toward me had been building. I started to see the pattern. Patricia had been competing with me for Marcus's attention for 20 years and, in her mind, had been losing to a child who wasn't even his. Her jealousy festered in silence until it exploded. Understanding her motivations helped me realize her attack wasn't really about me at all. It was about her own deep insecurity and fear of being replaced. I had simply been the target for all that accumulated pain. This realization gave me a sense of clarity and purpose. I wasn't going to let Patricia's emotional wounds damage my family relationships. I was going to address this head-on with compassion for her pain, but with firm boundaries about how I would be treated. I decided to reach out to Tyler first, knowing he had been caught in the middle and was likely struggling. When I called him, his relief was immediate. "Ava, I'm so sorry about what happened," he said, his voice heavy. "I had no idea Mom had been harboring that resentment. I've been sick about it all week." "Tyler, none of this is your fault," I assured him. "But I need to ask you something honestly. Do you feel like I've manipulated Dad's love or taken anything away from your relationship with him?" There was a pause, and then Tyler's voice came back stronger. "Are you kidding me, Ava? You've made Dad happier than I've ever seen him. Watching him be your father has been one of the best parts of growing up. You brought out a wonderful, nurturing side of him that I've benefited from too." His words meant more to me than he could possibly know. Tyler went on to say that he had been dealing with Patricia's controlling behavior for years, and that her attack on me had been a wake-up call about how toxic some of her patterns were. "Sarah and I have been talking about it all week," he confided. "We don't want Emma growing up around that cruelty. What Mom did to you was unforgivable, and we're going to make sure it never happens again. Tyler's support gave me the courage to take the next step. I decided to organize a family meeting at my apartment, on my territory, where I would feel strong and in control. I wanted to address what had happened directly, set clear boundaries, and give everyone a chance to rebuild our relationships on healthier ground. I sent a formal but firm invitation to Marcus, Patricia, Tyler, and Sarah. I explained that I wanted to have an honest conversation about Thanksgiving and what needed to change for our family to move forward. I made it clear that this meeting would be respectful and that I expected the same from everyone. Marcus called me as soon as he received the invitation, and hearing his voice almost broke my resolve. "Ava, sweetheart, I have been so worried about you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't tell you how sorry I am about what Patricia said. It was cruel and wrong, and it doesn't reflect how I feel about you at all." "I know, Dad," I said, the word dad feeling both natural and defiant. "But we need to talk about this as a family, and we need to make sure it never happens again." "You're absolutely right," he agreed. "And I want you to know that I've already told Patricia her behavior was completely unacceptable. What she said about you was not only wrong, it was the opposite of how I feel about our relationship." Marcus went on to tell me that the week since Thanksgiving had been one of the worst of his life, not just because of the pain Patricia had caused me, but because her words had revealed the state of their marriage. He had been forced to confront the fact that his wife had been harboring deep resentment toward his daughter for decades, and that realization was causing him to question everything about their relationship. "I need you to understand something, Ava," he said firmly. "You are my daughter in every way that matters. You have been since the day I met you, and you will be until the day I die. Nothing Patricia said changes that, and nothing ever will." His words helped heal some of the damage, but I knew that actions would matter more than words in rebuilding our family's foundation. The meeting was scheduled for the following Saturday evening. I spent the week preparing, writing down everything I wanted to say and practicing in front of the mirror until I felt confident I could express myself clearly without getting overwhelmed. James returned from his business trip 2 days before the meeting, and his steady presence helped calm my nerves. He offered to be there, but I decided this was something I needed to handle with my family alone. However, knowing he was in the bedroom waiting to support me gave me additional strength. When Saturday arrived, I felt as ready as I could be to face the family that had shaped me and to fight for the relationships that mattered most. Marcus arrived 30 minutes early, just as I had expected. When I opened the door, we looked at each other for a moment before he pulled me into the tightest hug of my life.